Charles Manson was an American criminal and cult leader. In mid-1967, he formed what became known as the Manson Family. Manson's followers committed a series of 9 murders at 4 locations in July and August 1969. We all know that Charles Manson and the Manson family were among the most violent and depraved killers of our time. Yet when one takes a closer look at the infamous cult and their crimes, a series of truly bizarre details are revealed. If you're unsure as to which side of the great nature versus nurture debate you subscribe to, Charles Manson's childhood is proof that nurturing plays a significant role in the development of a serial killer. Whether or not Manson was born to kill, the fact that his mother was a criminal who spent time in prison had to play a role in Manson's deranged pathology. Manson's mother once sold him to a woman who wanted a child for a pitcher of beer. Miss Manson was agreeable to this and pretty much makes her the worst mum ever. Manson's uncle had to search for the woman who bought the boy and eventually retrieved him and returned him to his mother. In hindsight, perhaps young Charles would have been better off had his uncle let the deal stand. Perhaps society would have as well. After spending his entire adolescence in and out of prisons, Charles Manson knew that he was not capable of being a productive member of society. Upon his release from prison as a young man, Manson warned prison guards, telling them, "Oh no, I can't go outside there." Manson later explained, "I knew that I couldn't adjust to that world, not after all my life had been spent locked up and when my mind was free." While in prison, Manson was enlisted in the Church of Scientology and audited for over 150 hours by his cellmate, who was a high-ranking member of the church. However, eventually, Manson grew weary of the intense training sessions and began to throw fits until guards moved his cellmate elsewhere. Ultimately, Scientology was too crazy, even for Manson. Yet, once out of prison, he did utilize techniques that he learned while studying Scientology to manipulate and brainwash his followers. He also utilized techniques from the popular best-selling self-help book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, to manipulate his followers. Not only did he intensely study the bestseller, Manson also took classes given by the Dale Carnegie Institute while in prison. No one could have predicted that the information in this popular book, which was geared towards sales and business people, would prove to be dangerous in the wrong hands. On the Span Ranch, books were not allowed. Neither were watches, clocks, or calendars. The oddest thing that Manson family members were not allowed to do was wear glasses if they required them. Manson claimed that this was because he wanted them to see the world in its natural state. More obviously, Manson preferred his followers to be uneducated, unaware, and unable to see reality. Yet, none of these red flags could penetrate the sick dedication taken on by many of his followers. Tate pleaded with the killers to be allowed to live long enough to have a baby, even offering herself as a hostage. The family members refused to spare her life or that of their unborn child. According to fellow family member Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins told 8.5-month pregnant Sharon Tate, "Look bitch, I have no mercy for you. You're going to die and you better get used to it," before stabbing Tate in the stomach and using her blood to write the word pig on the front door. Susan Atkins died in prison in 2009. When one thinks of notorious Manson murders, one inevitably thinks of blonde bombshell and actress Sharon Tate. Beautiful, young, talented, in love, and with a child, the actress had a bright light that was forever stifled that night of August 8, 1969, along with 4 of her dearest friends. While many reasonably assume that Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski, who was out of town the night his wife was murdered, were targeted due to their fame and celebrity status. The reality is that Sharon Tate and her house guests were not Charles Manson's intended targets. The fateful night he sent his followers to the house on Cielo Drive in Benedict Canyon, California. Manson felt snubbed by famous record producer and son of Doris Day, Terry Melcher, when he declined to work with Manson musically. When Charles Manson eventually sought his revenge, it is assumed that he didn't know Melcher had moved out of his home on Cielo Drive and subsequently rented it to Roman Polanski and his wife Sharon Tate. While fame was not necessarily Manson's motivation for choosing 1500 Cielo Drive as the site of the family's first murder spree, he did seek to gain notoriety by orchestrating the murders of certain targeted celebrities. Manson's celebrity kill list included the names of Tom Jones, Elizabeth Taylor, Frank Sinatra, Steve McQueen, and Richard Burton. In true narcissistic fashion, Manson defended himself in the trial with assistance from attorney Irving Kanarek. Needless to say, Manson failed to manipulate his way out of the criminal justice system. Apparently, his psychic defense attorney was known for being intolerably boring. Manson thought that this would somehow help him in his case, but it resulted in jurors asking for no-dos, and Manson eventually screaming at his attorney in court, shouting, "You're just making things worse." While Manson was convicted of first-degree murder for directing the deaths of Tate and LaBianca victims and sentenced to death, a charge that would later be commuted to life in prison upon California's abolishment of the death penalty, he never actually physically killed anyone. All of the Manson murders were carried out by the Manson family members upon his orders. Manson was never even physically present during the Tate and LaBianca slayings. While we all can breathe a sigh of relief knowing that Charles Manson died in prison on November 19th, 2017, at the age of 83, the murderous mastermind is still a source of contention, even from the grave. Nearly 3 months after his death, Manson's body remains on ice as at least 4 different people fight over rights to his body and estate. All 4 individuals claim to possess Manson's true and final will. 2 separate individuals claiming to be Manson's estranged sons, 1 individual claiming to be his grandson, and 1 supposed friend of Manson, all plan to battle it out in court for rights to Manson's legacy. The courts are calling the situation a circus, and we can't help but cringe, knowing this is exactly the kind of sick attention that fed Charles Manson's ego while he was still alive. He may have died, but the dark shadow of Manson's life continues to haunt this world from beyond the grave.